Well, hey everybody, how's it going? It's Friday. I'm waiting for the other streams to fire up. I got Instagram pulled up here. Instagram has not caught this live feed yet. Oh, there it goes. Let me just make sure we engage with that one right there. All right, we are, as far as I can tell, live streaming on 4 platforms now: Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. Get all your questions ready today because we're getting a fun show back to the craft after lots and lots of weeks of doing some business stuff. So I am Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company, also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It is a weekly live Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram show where I use my over 3 decades of experience in the trades, over 18 years of running a business, and over 9 years of broadcasting live to basically talk about the life of a master craftsperson and a paint business entrepreneur. And I generally have 4 types of shows. We have the craft, we have guests, we have business, and then we have self-development. And this year, what's different is that when you guys actually go to Spotify or YouTube, there's actually a color-coded icon for all this. So if you love the craft, there's a special color-coded icon for all the craft shows and self-development and business and guests as well too. So today, we're going to talk about 2 awesome projects in the Slavic house. This is my house. But first, what we're going to do is talk about mastering the basics. So at this time of the year, I always go through mastering the basics. This is a series of 8 videos, 8 shows, and 20 templates where I give up my personal email address and we start working on our businesses. So this is the slower time. This is the time where we start ideating. The profit and loss statement has been scratched to 0, and now we kind of start over. And typically people take this time to work on their businesses. This mastering the basics is something that I created to not only help myself, to help the industry, but also help all of you guys. 8 shows in order of importance. It's almost just like a step-by-step educational course where we start with SOPs and we end with self-development. And there is estimating, marketing, production, financials, management, and all that other good stuff, human resources, recruiting, all that stuff in there. There's a link in this show to that platform. You're going to see a link to Patreon. I have condensed all those shows. There's about 8 hours worth of content. There's about 20 templates. And in return, if you do that course, I give you my personal email address and I will email you if you like, if you need some help with any of those things. So the things you'll get with mastering the basics are all of my SOPs, the things you're going to see here, how to paint walls, ceiling, trim, cabinets, exteriors, historic restoration, RRP, lead laws, deck refinishing, things like that. You'll get my estimating guides, how to price things. You'll get a whole bunch of templates. You'll get my contract. You'll get my interview questions. You get my job descriptions. You get my pay scales. You will get every single thing that I use to run my business, minus a few things that are very specific to me, but they're all there for you guys. Let me just see the comments here. Oh, Amzi, how's it going, man? Amzi, a good friend, retreater, and also went through mastering the basics. I see my daughter Nugget watching as well on Instagram. School day. Not going to question that. As long as you're a listener and a follower, we're all cool with that. You're good. Your grades are good anyway, so that's awesome. Also, I will get ready for any of your questions, but I would ask you this, guys. Every single year, the 8 most popular shows that I basically do are mastering the basics. There's a link here. I took them outside of the normal live feed. They're there for you. 8 shows, 8 episodes, 20 templates, everything that I use, and my personal email address. Follow that. Also, in a couple weeks, we're going to be at the PCA Expo. This is my last PCA Expo as board chairperson. I'm going to be handing it over to somebody else. It is going to be absolutely awesome. It's been 6 to 7 years of service on the board of directors. I hope that I can see all you there. We're actually just doing the final coordination for the charity project on Friday. So in the week of the Expo, board of directors meeting Monday, week full of education, huge charity project Friday with 150 painting contractors there. It's going to be an absolute blast. Last year, as you can imagine, it's a very special thing, this charity project. I was able to put Christian Manhart of Moose Painting and Zach Kenny of ZK Painting, 2 of the biggest content creators, biggest influencers of the industry. Because I run the project management on that entire thing, I put them on a crew and I told them what to do. How many chances in life do you have an opportunity to do something like that? So I absolutely love that. Now, let's actually get down to the show today. This is my beloved Slavic house. We built this house about 6 years ago. I built these things at different times. I built this solid white oak 13-foot island. Let me just give you a little swing of this. It goes on forever. It is an absolute monster. 13-foot solid white oak island. This is about a 7-foot solid red and white oak table that I built for my family about 12 years ago. So the base and the top are all made from old churches, old houses, reclaimed buildings. All this wood came out of 100-year-old buildings. And what's even cooler than that is that this wood is not just 100 years old. This wood was probably 100 to 200 years old 100 years ago. So we're looking at a minimum of 200-year-old wood from this exact area. Like literally beyond the hill, past my Slavic farm here, there was a parsonage, a home for a church, for a priest that got torn down. A lot of this stuff came from there. So what you're seeing is a historic newel post from an 1880s house in New Prague here. Surprisingly, all made out of white cedar, which is super cool. This is all made out of white cedar planks. This is a combination of red and white oak like that. I'll give you some close-ups later, but here's what we're gonna do today. It has been, I refinish this table every 3 to 4 years. And by refinish, scuff sand it, clean it, put a coat of varnish on. I've done this not since we've done the house. I did my initial coats of solvent-based varnish on this stuff, and we have 4 kids that are very active, and they use and abuse this. I use and abuse this. There's a reason I picked white oak and reclaimed white and red oak for this stuff, because white oak is one of the hardest woods on the planet. They actually use it for trailer decking, where they pull Caterpillar bulldozers on, because it is so tough and it's grippy too. If you just do metal, that slides around. It is insanely tough. And what I really love about this table is that, here, what I can actually do is I'm going to disconnect a couple of these things. I want to show you the character on this table. So what you're looking at here is reclaimed red and white oak. You can see the beautiful quarter sawness here. I actually made breadboard ends out of all this stuff here. So there's actually a mortise and a tenon. There's a tenon that comes under here. I hollowed out the inside of this piece of wood and I secured this on here. The goal of this table years ago was to create a centerpiece for my family, something that my grandkids, great-grandkids, and everything else can get passed down. Because I'm not a perfect furniture maker, it is level, it's plumb, it's square, except that you'll never notice this elsewhere, but this table is about an inch or two wider on one side than the other. That's because the old reclaimed wood was just that way, and I don't care, and I like it. And what you also see on here are years and years of accumulation of, well, this is actually a water stain. This came out of an attic of an 1880s house, and there's actually water staining that came through here. The wood never rotted, but it stained the water, or stained the wood. What you're seeing here are iron stains from old cut nails that I actually had to pull out of here individually, pick them out, and then pull them out with pliers. This is what I love about this table. You see all these little colored marks on here? All these little things like that? That's all paint from art projects from, you know, give or take 12 years of my kids. We got some yellow paint on here. We got some teal paint on here. There's all sorts of fun stuff going on here. Look at all this stuff here. I love this stuff. And if you look close enough, I did actually fill some in the early days before high fill epoxy. I actually used a bunch of 2-part homemade epoxy on this stuff here, and I filled a bunch of these things. What I really, really love about this table is the sentimental value. You know those little baby forks that little toddlers have? You know, they're little stubby things, and they got the tiny little rounded over fork thing so their little fat hands can hold them. This thing is covered with little baby fork marks where they would sit here as toddlers, and we'd put their high chairs here and they'd be stabbing the table. And normally people would be horrified by that. That is the literal reason I made this thing. So this table, handmade by me, is an accumulation of basically 17 to 18 years of my kids growing up. And every time they have something like this, I'll get the food chunks off and I'll get the stuff off there. But anytime we get something like this, every time we get a fork mark, I just kind of clean it up, scuff it up, and varnish right over it again, because I love that stuff. I want this thing to be a time capsule of the history. I'll show you this one too. So we also have this beautiful white oak right here. So planks put together here. I put the sort of planks together over a series of days when I was building this house here. And then I had my best friend, Scott Yeager, come in, and he actually put this thing together, made the island, mounted this beautiful old newel post right here. And he used reclaimed wood to actually put together. He made all this kind of like shiplapping board, vertical shiplap here, out of old reclaimed wood that I had. And one of the coolest things about my island is this. there's an old lumber company called Westerman Lumber here that is not anymore, but I have a whole bunch of planks where they originally wrote in the 1800s about this stuff. H.E. Westerman Lumber, Lonsdale, Minnesota. And I specifically turned these things around, put them out, and then varnished them like that. So that is the history of those two pieces of kind of furniture / housing things. Here's the basic idea, folks. One interesting thing is that you hear so many wives' tales. You hear so many legends about how things should be done, how things might be done, about finishing wood. There's all these sort of elaborate things to do stuff. Now, here's the deal. I was an absolute weirdo as a kid. I used to refinish antique furniture. I used to do stuff like this for fun when I was between 10 and 18 years old in my parents' garage. I messed around with every single type of coating, type of application, type of applicator. And in the end, you know what I found out? There's a very simple process to do this stuff, and we overcomplicate it a lot of time. My basic process for either initially finishing this or doing it later is to lightly sand, vacuum, and tack rag. This is called SVT. This is something that we coined in my company 18 years ago. SVT, sand, vac, and tack. You prep painted woodwork with that. You prep and you prep stain and varnish stuff. SVT is the standard process, right? So what we would do with something like this is I have my beloved Surf Prep sander here with some 180 grit. Again, I don't go through all these elaborate sanding steps. I absolutely love all my grits and all my sanders. I like one grit, one sander, knock it out. And it's the process of the SVT over and over again, between coats, after coats, during coats, things like that, that really make it good. Not this crazy elaborate process. It's also controlling your environment. You see a fan in the window, I'll show you about that too. Sometimes we can overcomplicate that too. So here's the process, folks. When it's new, you lightly sand it, you vacuum it with a brush attachment, and then you use a tack rag. I love just any standard microfiber like this. I do not use the solvent-based tack rags with the actual gum and varnish in it. I also don't put mineral spirits on this. This is just water. And what you do is you wring it almost all the way out so you can barely feel any water on that. So basic process. You sand, you vacuum, you tack rag, you apply something, you let it dry, you move on. You let it dry fully, you SVT again, throw the second coat on, you're done. None of this stuff received any stain. Stain is only for color. Clear is for the actual protection. I love white oak and red oak so much that I only use clear on this. So initially, I did 3 coats of clear here. I did 3 coats of clear here. I've actually refinished this, I believe twice already, where by refinish, not strip, basically scuff sand like I did here, and then reapplied clear to sort of like just give it a new wear layer. Because this wood is old and it's got some lumps and stuff in it, when you slide pots and pans and notebooks and computers across it, the high spots of the wood will actually wear quicker than the low spots. So making sure that you don't break through all the initial finish is a good thing. So here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you what we're going to use. I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it. And then I'm actually going to go through a very truncated process on this. This island is completely sanded, it's completely vacked, it's completely tack ragged. We're going to apply finish. This is going to be one of the more satisfying things you're going to see on the internet in quite a while, if you're into this stuff like a crazy person like me. I'm going to go through the quick sand, vac, and tack process on this one. We're going to throw finish on this, we're going to throw finish on this, and I'll be here for any of your questions. I absolutely love this stuff. I love watching people do this stuff. I hope you do too. So here we are. What clears are we going to use on this stuff? This is not a treatise on every single clear that's ever been. I'm going to tell you the most readily available, the most foolproof, the easiest, the hardest wearing, and the most beautiful finish, in my opinion. But I also remember, you guys know me, I have a lot of data and a lot of feelings. I have tried every single thing in the world, and this is the weirdest, most unique, specific product we've ever seen. It's Minwax Antique Oil. You can still get it at hardware stores, big box stores, Sherwin-Williams, things like that. This is a product that is supposed to be lathered on and then wipe the excess off. But what's really interesting about this product is that I did a whole bunch of experiments 20 years ago where if you apply this stuff and just brush it on like normal varnish, spray it on like normal varnish and leave it, it creates one of the hardest wear layers ever. Now, downside, if I have to say one, is that it's really, really glossy, which is not a net negative, right? I prefer a little more satin, a little more lower sheen. but it's so hard to find a satin varnish that has the wear of this. This is, as far as I can tell, the closest thing to the 1800s, early 1900s solvent-based varnish. It wears so nicely. It is so beautiful, and it is the hardest thing readily available that you can hand apply without any crazy skills that will give you the most beautiful finish ever. There's a million things we could do. I could drag this down to the Slavic shop. We could take out an air-assisted airless sprayer. We could put a 3-component polyester in here. We could put it in an infrared baking room. We could do all this other stuff. This table's not leaving my house. And within about a matter of an hour, you can SVT, throw a coat of varnish on, open the windows, blast the air out, move on with your life. Your family eats on this table 24 hours later. So here we go. Let's talk about the other tools that we do. Obviously, we want a respirator. We have a natural bristle brush. Every time we use solvent, we use natural bristle brush. And again, this really isn't all that much for application because we're just kind of pour it out. This is more for just leveling out and smoothing it out and things like that. The cool thing about natural bristle brushes, and with Purdy, you can still get a whole bunch of these things. The bristles are actually hollow. This is hog hair bristle from China. Sometimes you hear them called China bristle, hog bristle, natural bristle, things like that. The reason people like me, master crafts people, use hog bristle, natural bristle, China bristle is that the hog hair is actually a natural thing. It comes off of an animal and it's hollow. It actually absorbs more of that solvent. So think about any time you've stained your deck with a solvent-based deck stain and you've come across a spindle and you've done one of these and it just spits everywhere when you're using a nylon brush. This has a better tendency to hold everything in there and not spit and things like that. It just holds it better. And a lot of the times, if you get a really nice one like the Purdy's, you just lay it out like that and it's got a much smoother finish than nylon. Because sometimes nylon can be too stiff because they're made to kind of work with all those very thick latex and acrylic paints nowadays. So we got the brush, we got the finish, we got the tack rag, we got this. Let's talk about sander as well too. So my beloved Surf Prep, we own nothing else. My entire shop is filled with this stuff. I use just a 180 abrasive. There are pieces of furniture that I have made that I've gone all the way up to 2000 grit from 80 grit, right? To do this stuff in furniture making. In standard architectural coatings, and especially when you have an apprenticeship program like mine, you really want to make things simple. And you can go 220 grit on a random orbital sander like this on this, but it's a little too fine, right? It wears out too quick. You could go 120 and it gets a little too aggressive. It doesn't give you the fineness. This is something that I found that works very, very, very well. We use in our 3x4s in the shop when we do raised panel cabinet doors, we'll do medium squishy. When I do big flat areas, I take out the random orbital sander and I use a 180. 180 or equivalent, because sometimes it goes 200, sometimes it goes 160, but it's right kind of bouncing in there. But I really like a 180. And especially, think about this. We're not sanding raw wood. We're not removing stuff. We're taking an insanely hard, beautiful finish and basically giving it a scuff sand, and we're going to clean it off and then put more clear on it. Probably a good time to mention to you guys, Tim Pierpont, is that antique oil-based? Yes, this is solvent-based. I have used water-based in the past. Right now, and I'm open for any discussion on this, but when you're talking clears, you are never going to find a harder, more beautiful, more readily available, higher wearing, durable finish than solvent-based. And within solvent-based, I've tried them all, folks. Everything you can find, things that you order through the mail, things that you make, I've tried every single thing. I cannot find a better one than this. It's just a weird product. I'm not sure its intended use is even this. It is phenomenal, give or take. So random orbital sander for stuff like this, you can certainly use a medium grit sanding sponge, but it's going to be more effective, more fast. And also you can see I got my shop vac attached to this. So process, we are ready to go. I have my floor prep here. You can see underneath my table, I have my drop cloth right here. Underneath my island, I have drop cloth. And then on the back side, because it's a little narrower, I actually have 12-inch 3M plastic and tape on the back side there. So there is a really nice overhang here. It's always tempting to throw some plastic down. I don't want to make any more garbage than I have to. I can control myself. I'm not going to go crazy and start brushing the side of my island. Huge overhang here. I'm going to hand apply on the sides right here. I typically do edges first, and then we'll do the top. So here's what we're going to do for the rest of the show here. Quick sanding process on the table here. We're going to simulate the shop vac stuff, because typically what I would do is take the sander off, put my brush attachment on, and do that, or have another sander. In my downdraft sanding table in the shop, we have vacs and sanders and surf prep stuff dedicated for sanding, and then we have a couple dedicated for the brush attachment to get the dust off, and then we use the tack rag. I'll go through that process. While this thing dries, we're going to put a coat of this beautiful oil on this thing. Then we'll put a coat of beautiful oil here. I will answer any questions, and we're going to call it a Friday because it is a work from home Friday right here. So, oh, we got some questions on YouTube. Can you show the can? All right, folks. I got to get to work here pretty soon. Minwax antique oil. This is my preferred stuff for this sort of thing. You can ask me any questions you want about it. You can read all the labels, but honestly, there's sometimes you just have to test some stuff out and go by what the finished product is and not what the label says a lot of the time. So it's a hard finish. It wears on this stuff. Know this, guys. There may be some people that have some very strong opinions about what to use. The problem is I've had this table for 12 years. I've had this island for 6 years. I have about 14 other things in my house, including all my oak countertops back here that you see that are all finished with this sort of stuff. I live with it every day. I have 4 kids. We have 2 dogs. We have a cat. It gets used heavily. And I can tell you, I've not found anything better. So my experience. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to sand, we're going to vac and tack this table. We're going to finish, and then we're going to finish, and then I'll be back for any questions. 2 things I want you guys to do. Follow the link to Mastering the Basics, where there's an 8-show, 20 template, and my personal email address thing for you to consume in the winter here before it gets too busy. If you want to run a huge multi-million-dollar business, if you want to be a single sole proprietor, lifestyle business, all of that stuff is for you to make more money, be happier, less chaos, learn how to schedule, learn how to estimate, all that other good stuff. And also link to the PCA Expo there. It is the SuperBowl of our industry, 1,500 people, biggest trade show in the industry, and you're never going to get better education. This is a singular event. Nobody else does this. It'll never happen anywhere else but this. We do it once a year. I would urge you to do it now because when summer gets busy, you're not going to have time for any of this. So let's strap up. I'm going to get my ventilation going. Oh, I probably should say something about ventilation. So all sorts of elaborate things you can do to get smell and particles out of a house. The problem is we are in a 40 by 40 foot living room right here, and it would be tempting to put up zip walls, poles, plastic, and all this other stuff. But if you have a really good, strong vacuum, a really efficient sander, and a push-pull method in your windows, you can get no dust in a room like this. I did all the sanding here this morning, and there's not a particle of dust in this air because the vacuum is strong enough. It's got a dual filter on it. The sander is super efficient, and we use a push-pull method. So over on this end, I have a 18-foot patio door that I have cracked to allow air to come in. And then you have a fan here pointing out, and you crack the window and you point the fan out, turn the fan on, and then what you do is you create a negative air pressure where you're pushing air this way, it's pulling fresh air in. And because the projects are on this side of a 40-foot living room, the air is going to come through here, grab any smell particles or particles, and push them out the window here. It's not even going to give it a chance to pull through here. I have my beautiful U couch and stuff over here. What you don't do is push it this way because then you're going to drag all the smell and everything back into bedrooms and things like that. So again, I have those crazy negative air machines. I have air scrubbers. I have all this stuff. But sometimes, folks, you throw a drop cloth down, you do good stuff, you follow a good SOP, you use a push-pull, and you can get things done as a master craftsperson very easy without affecting those around you. So respirator on, push-pull, negative air machine, negative air fan on, and I'm going to SVT, and we're going to throw some finish on this stuff. Enjoy, follow along. While I'm doing this stuff, put in any questions you guys got. We can talk about anything you like at all. So here we go. principles of sanding are sometimes simpler and a little more unsatisfying and boring than you think. Sometimes you can fixate on the type of grit, the actual grit, and the sanders. You get the best sander, you get one type of paper, and you do something 100%. I am a firm believer that master craftspeople, one of the signs, proclivities of a master craftsperson is to be able to do a series of steps 100% without skipping, without doing less than 100%. So if you'll notice, very methodical. The edges of the table have already been sanded previous. Normally I would start with that and go around like that. I just didn't want to have to drag my vacuum around for you guys. What I did was I went up one side of a breadboard, I went over, down one side of a breadboard, and then methodically I did 2 passes, about a 50% coverage on every single board here. And what you're seeing, this dull stuff, this is a principle called powdering up, what we call powdering up. What you want to do is make that sometimes there is waxes, soaps, other things in your finishes that actually help with the sanding part of this. We're getting some, it's snowing like crazy, and there's a huge gust of wind that just came through. That's kind of fun. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that aids in sanding so that these things don't gum up, right? And so what you're seeing in the powder there is the grinding of the actual finish, but it's also some of those waxes and soaps and things that are put in the actual finish. So now, typically what I would do is detach my sander, put my shop vac brush attachment on, go in there and get the bulk of it, especially these little things. That's already been done, so I'm going to show you tack rag. We're going to let this dry and then switch over to finish. Now I'm going to put my fan back in the window. Okay, microfiber, wetted with water, just like that. Get this out of the way here. Fold it over here so we have many surfaces. And just like I sand cabinet doors, just like I paint cabinet doors, just like I paint a room, we're going to do the edges first. These microfibers are insanely efficient with this sort of thing. And then up one side of the breadboard, over, down one side. I'll typically switch over. About halfway through the table, we're going to switch again, find some new surface on the microfiber. Make sure you get even contact with your hand. You're basically going back and forth like this. And I feel it's getting dry. I'm going to flip it over once more to finish this table off. Okay, there you go. If you have any question whether you removed all the grit or not, wash this sucker out, wring it out, do this process all again. So now let's switch over to our monstrous island. Let's throw a little finish on this bad boy. All right. So here we have it. Let's see. How are we looking right there? Pretty dang good. Okay. All right, folks, I know I got my respirator chattering against this thing here. So here's what we're going to do. This thing has been SVT'd. I'm going to pour out a little finish. I'm going to use my brush to do the edges, and then I'm going to meter out the finish, and we're going to apply it. The general idea is apply all the finish to it, and then you go back. With enough working time with solvents, you should have one more opportunity to back, side to side, fluid strokes, smooth everything out, and you can start looking down, seeing the shine, and see if you missed anything. So here we go. Finish goes on. So I'm going to wet my brush here, and sorry, I'm going to be muffled for a little bit. Practice what you preach. I'm just kind of getting the brush kind of tuned up here like this. You always brush away from the corners like this, so you don't, if you drag your brush, you're going to get a big drip. So I'm just going to apply. And until this brush is fully saturated, you'll see me doing a little more back and forth like this. Once this brush is fully saturated, you can really do some nice long strokes like that. So while I'm here, I'm going to coat this breadboard end. And then in the end, typically what happens is when you go end to end, and even when you ride your brush like this, you're going to get some carryover on the end. So I'm going to apply,
I'm going to pick up the brush drips around the edge, and then I'm going to smooth it out. So here we go. Edges first. I just went and picked up a little more varnish. I can feel it. I really like, if you do this long enough, you can actually feel it when the brush is getting dry and when you need to apply more. Big mistake that rookies make, especially when painting, is they try to push paint too far. You should be deliberate. Whether you're finishing, whether you're painting, you should be deliberate. But you shouldn't push it too far. No more strokes than you need. And get a healthy dose of paint almost to the point of saturation. Not anymore. Evenness. Oh man, I love how this stuff levels out. So I'm going to give you guys some pretty nice hero shots at the end of this thing here. And I get all this varnish on. Getting a little dry. One last little bit here, and then we'll do the top. But again, you follow your SOP. It's always edges first. Because when the principle in my company is you do all this kind of stuff first, because that's the thing that humans forget. All right, so now, so we don't drag stuff over here, lay myself down a pretty nice little coat here. That's the stuff. Start from the middle, work our way out. And the biggest thing that I'm paying attention to now is even coverage. Because this is a varnish that's not typically made to be poured on, it's made to be brushed or sprayed. So you can't actually over apply this stuff. You gotta be pretty careful. All right, so we got pretty good coverage right here. I'm actually using the side raking light right now to see where I've gone and where I haven't. See, the brush is getting pretty saturated now, so a lot comes out of that. I'm going to distribute a little over here. And remember, step one, get it on. Step two, smooth it out. Because you really want this to be one cohesive, beautiful sort of coat. So step one is getting it on. If any of you guys do any floor epoxy, like I did in this house here, 3,200 square feet of it, you know it's kind of a similar process where you get the stuff on and then you smooth it out. All right. Back and forth, efficient, not missing anything. It's very dry today, so I'm just making sure that everything is varnished. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. The goal is to get this stuff on before it starts tacking up. The good thing about a lot of solvent based is you do have a little bit of working time. So there we go. Try to distribute it generally evenly. And now, and what I'm not doing is I'm not picking up and flicking, because you'll flick varnish sometimes. If you're carrying a big, like if you're pushing a big wave of varnish across, you can actually flick it across. So I'm going back. There's a lot of varnish right here. I'm just picking up a little bit more. Big wave of varnish right here. I'm going this way so I don't scrape my brush, but then we're always going to finish this way. Remember, step one, get it on. This is the get it on phase. Using that side light, raking light, it's getting a little dry over here. And push that wave of varnish all the way down to the end, distribute it along the way. Now I'm going to pick it up and distribute as we go. You can see the brush is pretty nice and saturated right now. That's what you want. Now, I'm going to do one light check real quick. And then what I'm going to do is go around the edge and make sure I catch any drips. And then the final thing I'm going to do for this, tip it off. One way, back and forth like this. So, I'm going to start here. catching the drips. I can already feel it tacking up on the edges here. So I'm going to get after it. I want this thing to be even. Oh, and I do see a holiday right here. You guys should have said something. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So we started over here. So what I'm going to do is start in the middle. I got a nice seam on this board right here. Go this way, back and forth. This is so satisfying. Wish you guys could see this in person here. There are a few things more satisfying than this. Holiday. Just saw it in that Lincoln light. It's like a aerobic exercise here. This is the final phase, tipping it off, and then we're going to go to the table. The table's already flashed off from that tack rag. It's going to be 2,500 steps just doing this island here. Final one. Oh, now, one final light check. Oh, Lord, this is satisfying. And it's so cool to see, especially with this finish. What you're going to see is that you can see some brush strokes right now, but you can see already on this end, you can almost see it creep and go like this. And it's starting to be very mottled here, and it's very brush strokey here, and it just starts going like this. Oh, it's so satisfying. That is beautiful. So I'm looking at different raking light right here. As far as I can tell, I think we did what master craftspeople do, which is 100% coverage, even coverage, no major flaws. I'm not seeing any huge spots of dust. Anything else? All right, let's switch over to the next one. Let's get that whole table in here for that nice, satisfying sort of thing. All right, I tell you what, before we do this, let's go through some questions, see what have we got here. Oh man, thanks everybody for watching. Love all the comments, love all the questions. Amzy, Jack, you better be paying attention. You're getting a quiz. Dude, here, I tell you what, I'll give you guys a little satisfying shot here. Before I do the same thing to this table here, this table really comes alive because that stuff is relatively newer oak, give or take. This stuff is 200 to 300 plus year old oak. The depth and the character, the growth rings in this are unlike anything you'll ever see. This is really satisfying to do. I've done this a couple times in my life. If I could just do this for a living, I probably would. There's not many of these opportunities out there. So let's go real quick. I'll give you the kind of hero shot here. Look at this bad boy. Look at that. You want to talk about satisfying. Holy mama. My Lord. Stuff like this always makes me wonder why painters are so angry all the time. How can you be angry doing this and getting that result? So fun. Okay, on to the next one. Sorry, I could look at that for a long time now. All right, here we go, folks. This is my handmade 200 to 300 year old wood table that I made for my family. Let's do this. All right, we're going to deposit a little here. I don't need to do as much because now I got a saturated brush. I'm going to make sure I actually don't have too much. I'm going to hit that edge. Remember, brushing away from the corners like that. If you scrape, you're going to get a big drip. Rookie mistake. Got the something right there. Here, buddy. And once in a while, very perceptive viewers will wonder why I'm using the can like this and I don't pour it off in a second. Number one, I'm not giving a brush into it. Number two, I generally use about a whole can here, and if I do have a little bit left, I'm just throwing this stuff away. I'm generally not going to keep this stuff for next time if you only got a ½ inch on the bottom, give or take. So, all right, getting the back side here. My dogs are coming out to inspect. Here comes little Lenny. Lenny, you come out and see, bud? Get your way. Then we'll put a little stripe. Hey, Len. Hey, bud. Oh, they can't see you on there. Oh, the Brittany Spaniel came out to say hi. Oh, man, you guys should see these epoxy things. They get cloudy when you sand them, but then they get clear again when you put the varnish on. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right, I'm going to hit this breadboard in. I'm paying close attention to fill those little nail holes full of varnish. That's something I've been consciously doing since I built this thing. I'm going to hit this other breadboard end over here. Yep, pushing a nice little wave of varnish right here. Almost like you're squeegeeing epoxy on the floor. And then we're going to smooth this stuff out. And you notice I'm not doing one of these things. I'm almost going up, tipping over, and coming back down like this. That'll make sure you don't flick it in that finish. Now, I feel like we've got a little more finish than we need here. So I'm actually going to go across and push some of this. There's a nice deep nail hole. I'm going to push this across the table to distribute it a little better. Remember, we're going to go back and finish the brush strokes in a little bit here. You actually have to be careful where you pour it out here because some of these nail holes actually go through the table. I'll be pouring out on my drop cloth here. I remember originally there's probably half a dozen spots I filled with different kinds of epoxy. I was experimenting. And I did a big pour with one type of industrial epoxy. And I didn't shore it up well enough, and it all leaked out through the nail holes, kind of like a capillary system. And it leaked out onto the floor of my new garage out here, but I did have a bunch of tarps and plastic down and stuff. But it was just the early days of the epoxy stuff. It wasn't so prevalent like it is now. So I kind of had to figure that crap out for myself. Okay, so every time I see a big nail hole like this, what you do, the technique, like you can see this big boy right here, the technique is you actually push that down like that and it deposits a whole bunch of finish right there. So, all right. So remember, before we do the final tip off, we're going to go through and get any drips. Not that I would ever have a drip, right? That's a grass person joke. All right, and then because the table's good enough, we're just going to go all the way across like this. And if you're still watching, I feel like this is that same thing we were doing on lake yoga at the retreat last week. There we go, smoothing out. And if I see any really thick accumulated spots, what I'll do is you come back and move it around this way and then tip it off this way. That distributes it a lot better than just keep going back and forth like this. Light check. God dang it, look at that thing. I see there's a little dog hair right here. You see I just flip off the table. I'm going to flip that off. There we go. Now, put that down. I'm using the brick, because sometimes using your fingers it's hard to get it. See, dog hair. So now, the good thing about solvent-based finishes is very, very amenable to doing stuff like that. But open time, man, tell you what, folks, is there anything more satisfying than that? Okay, check it from the other angle. Oh man, good to see what you guys see now. I'm going to hit this breadboard in once. There's a little accumulation, over accumulation right in this corner. That'll take care of that. My Lord, that looks good. All right. All right, folks, there we go. So I'm going to give you one last couple hero shots of all this stuff here, but my two asks. Let's go three. My three asks. Share this show in all the painter forums. Share it on your feed, share it on your story. If you like this, put it out there so other people like you and like me can find it. Number two, come to the Expo with me, the SuperBowl of our industry. 1,500 people, largest trade show, 3 days of education, our board of directors meeting, and 150 company charity project at the end of it on Friday, which I will be the project manager of. So if you ever want to know what it's like working for me, and anybody who's worked for me, Jack, quiet up there, you're going to get a chance to see what it's like, because I run that charity project with an iron fist. It's going to be so fun. So, and the last thing I'll ask of you is mastering the basics. I've created 8 shows, an educational course, 20 of my own templates from my business, and I give you my own personal email address to help you along the way. That's my offering to you guys. A lot of people help me along the way, and I want to do the same for you. And that is your finished project, the Slavic House, the 13-foot white oak island, the 7-foot completely reclaimed 300-year-old wood red and white oak table there. It's all leveling out. Everything is as it should be. Look at that, folks. Come on now. You don't get something out of that, you're dead inside. All right, everybody. You guys have a great rest of the weekend. Thank you so much for coming along this journey for me. We just crossed the 500 show mark. Wouldn't have done it without you. And you guys give me the fuel to keep on doing this stuff. So look forward to next week on Ask a Painter Live, where viewer of this show right now, Amzi Bach, is going to be our special guest. And he's one of the more interesting humans I've ever met in this industry for many, many reasons. And you're going to find out why next week. See you guys.